It is the final day of the G7 summit as heads of state gather at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park for a photo op. Leaders of the leading world economies have held discussions regarding some of the most pressing geopolitical issues, like the war in Ukraine and a belligerent China. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is participating in a session exclusively to discuss the issue in Ukraine. All the 7 G7 nations, EU and the special invitees are attending this session. Zelensky has been maintaining that he wants to create conditions for a resolution to the conflict. And for more on this, we're now being joined live from Hiroshima, Japan, with our principal diplomatic correspondent, Sidhan Sibol. Sidhan Sibol, good to see you again. Just a few moments ago, the meeting or the crucial meeting between Ukrainian president and the group of 7 nations and also the invited countries, which include Australia and India, are participating in a sit-down, and I believe this is the final sit-down at the ongoing summit. Probably you can tell us, apart from Ukraine meeting, what else is going to happen today?
Well, there will be a series of press conferences, including by host the Japanese Prime Minister, the American President Joe Biden, and the press conference by the Ukrainian President Zelensky, which looks like will be the most important one of all the engagements today. We saw that the day started with various engagements, including the invited countries paying their honors and remembering the victims of Hiroshima atomic attack. But essentially, we know that today will be an important day of diplomatic engagements. There will be a bilateral meeting between the US President Joe Biden and the Ukrainian President Zelensky, which is expected to see further support by Washington towards Kyiv. We know that already the Americans have said that they will be providing F-16 to the Ukrainians, and that there has been, of course, response by the Russians. In fact, the Chinese have also responded to the joint communique that was released when it comes to the G7 meeting. But all in all, a mega diplomatic engagement. Last 3 days have been all about that, how leaders converge, find common ground, raise common concerns, and fight the challenges the world is facing.
Sidhan Sibol, we've been talking about the group of 7, and we've been also talking about the countries that have been invited, the 8 countries that have been invited, but we've not mentioned the other invitees, which includes the European Union, we have the European Commission, we also have the World Bank, we also have the United Nations, we also have the World Health Organization, we also had the Citigroup giving a speech yesterday at the ongoing summit. What is the G7 group of nations trying to portray when it comes to their financial muscle?
Well, the group of seven, they emerged in last century, basically based on the premise that their economic output was the largest, and that is why they came together. But in today's world, things are very different. Well, yes, there has been a worry over the global economy, as you basically asked the question on, and there have been special invitees as well. World Bank and others have been regularly invited during these meetings. So in fact, India will be inviting the representatives of the World Bank, IMF during its chair of the G20. So essentially, while economics dominates at the G7 groupings meetings, whether it's here in Hiroshima or in the past in Germany, UK, France, there has been a political dimension to the grouping as well. Because of many issues, whether it's in 80s, the Iraq-Iran war, or the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, or this year during Hiroshima summit, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. these are the issues that have brought the G7 together, and how G7 can essentially come and form a united front against the global challenges. But there are questions as well regarding G7 as to the relevance of G7, because there are groupings like the BRICS who have already taken the output in terms of the common output, which is larger than the output of the G7. Also, G7 is seen as a grouping of largely the global north. There are questions as to how you basically bring the voices of global south as well. There hasn't been any mention of the word the global south in the joint statement. It raises, of course, questions as to, is G7 all about the rich people of the planet? That needs to be changed, and that is why this year's G7 is interesting and important, because the Japanese have invited countries like India, Brazil, who of course are major powers when it comes to the global south and play an important role in the global governance architecture.
Right, live from Hiroshima, Japan, our principal diplomatic correspondent, Sidhan Sibol, thank you very much. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.